Hello, my friends. Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday for Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. This is Jennifer. It's done, guys. It's done. This quilt has been in progress since 2021 and it is finished. A quick refresher on this project because I have a lot of new viewers and I want to welcome you guys and kind of catch you up to speed. So in 2010, very long time ago, in 2010, I designed a quilt called The Project of Doom, which is a Harry Potter themed bookcase quilt that was based on a mural that I painted for my now 30-year-old child for their 8th birthday. So this quilt I designed in 2010. I ran a quilt along in 2011, originally on LiveJournal. It was on Live, the whole thing was on LiveJournal, but that was the year Fandom and Stitches was created because that quilt along kept crashing my website, which my website is sewhooked.com and is still sewhooked.com. So both Sewhooked and Fandom and Stitches, my websites. Okay, so you're kind of caught up. So since then, we've had the Project of Doom, and then in 2021, we had the Year of Doom, which was a year-long celebration for the 10th anniversary of both Fandom and Stitches and the Project of Doom, where lots and lots of amazing designers shared multi-fandom bookcase blocks. So now you're all caught up. So in 2021, I had just had massive surgery on my foot, and this was the first thing I worked on when I was able to walk again. So I was non-weight bearing, meaning I couldn't walk on my right foot from September to January. And when I was able to walk again, this was the first thing I worked on because I was running this quilt along on Fandom and Stitches. So the original intent was for me to make coordinating bookcase quilts for both myself and my husband. We do not share covers because we have different temperature needs. So we were going to have two different quilts side by side. I've changed my mind since then. I've made myself a couple of other quilts that I'm really happy with, and we don't really care if our quilts match or not. So I've decided to just let that go. So it was time to focus on this one quilt. Well, between 2021 and 2024, we had, honestly, starting at the end of 2019, between then and like the end of last year, we just had some crazy things going on, just all kinds of upside down, life-changing things happened. My life has changed in big ways a couple of times in the last couple of years. And I kept putting this aside. I'd make a block, I'd put it aside. I'd make a block, I'd put it aside. And finally, I started collaborating with my husband, and I was like, it's time to get this done. So last year, I really started working on it more, and I was still kind of going in little fits and bursts. And this whole journey is on Talk to Me Tuesday. I've shared everything pretty much since 2009. I've shared most of my life on Talk to Me Tuesday. So if you have a lot of time on your hands, I want to do some binge watching. But for the last 6 months or so, I've really been working on this, and there was a big final push just recently, and we got the last row, the last titles, and the quilt is completely pieced together. Since a lot of you have been following along, I don't want to rehash everything, but I do want to share some things with you so that you have like a little idea of how this journey has gone. The very top row, all of that was made before this year. That's the Egypt row. My husband has been studying archaeology off and on for probably, I don't know, 8-9 years now. And it's been an on again, off again thing. When he has times, he's a software engineer. He often doesn't have time, but when he does have time, it's something he's very passionate about. So we have an archaeology row. These are all real books, real archaeology books, most of them about Egyptology. And then that row sat finished, and there were a couple of other blocks done, and then they just sat for several years. And then when I picked it back up, I already had that done. Had a couple other blocks that we've since put aside because we decided they didn't work with the theme my husband wanted, which really ended up being more just like the books that he loves. There are a lot of real books in this quilt. So top row, all real archaeology books. The second row, the fandom little tidbits are Indiana Jones. So we have the idol, we have the headpiece of Ra, and like a little lantern over here. We've got some Indiana Jones themes books here, but most of these are real books that my husband read growing up, like adventure books and that kind of thing. And then our next row is all fictional detectives, mostly titles from within the canon of the fictional detectives. There are a few titles sprinkled throughout that you'd recognize, like Murder on the Orient Express, but there are also titles from within the stories. So for example, we have The History of British Birds, which is a book that is mentioned inside The Empty House, which is a Sherlock Holmes story. So we did more kind of in canon stories. That was a really big deal for my husband, that we had things that were like references to the actual stories themselves. Our next row is all sort of classics. So we have some Greek books, and then we have some just older books like Dante's Divine Comedy, and we have Don Quixote, and just other like books that you would consider classics that you might read in like a lit class. The next row is entirely the Lord of the Rings. It's all books that are titles that are mentioned within the Lord of the Rings, or stories that are mentioned within the Tolkien Lord of the Rings Middle-earth canon. It's not like The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. We have translations from the Elvish by Bilbo Baggins, which is a book that's mentioned in the Lord of the Rings. So it's like all in canon books. And then I have Sting, the sword that I designed for that row, which is available on Phantom and Stitches. If I didn't mention, the Indiana Jones ones are also on Phantom and Stitches. And then I have like the teacup, which is also Phantom and Stitches. That's Project Doom. And then the next row is all Lovecraft. It's all stuff from within Lovecraft canon. It's just different books that are mentioned within canon, with a couple of Lovecraft world themed things. Like there's a little Cthulhu plinth, and then I've got like a Miskatonic banner, which is the university from Lovecraft stories. And then the bottom row is Dresden Files, Rivers of London, and we've got our cat Iliad, and we have Bob the Skull, who is from the Dresden Files. So lots of things that my husband loves, and a lot of these things are overlaps. They're things that I love too. So Egyptology is not my thing, but is definitely my husband things. But a lot of the other things are things we have in common, which makes it a little bit extra special to just have a reminder of all the stuff that we both enjoy, that we share. So when you guys saw this last week, I had the bottom 3 rows pieced. And since then, obviously, I've pieced the rest of the quilt. So it is, we have 1.5-inch finished shelves, 3-inch finished sides with a 3-inch finished border on the outside. And you can see that I did use the fig on, which is the grunge. Both the borders and the background are grunge. The background is fig. The borders are black. I don't remember which black grunge that is, but I will find it and I'll put it in the description for you guys. The top are blocks that I designed just for this quilt. I don't plan to share them because they were designed specifically for my husband, so that probably won't ever go online anywhere. The top of this quilt is inspired by a Moroccan screen that we have in our living room. It is not the same design, but it's inspired by that because Moroccan screens are very intricate, and I wanted it to read Moroccan screen without having a crazy amount of detail. And part of the reason I did that was my husband plans to sleep with this quilt, and I wanted the embroidery to be further down so it's not like right under his face, because it's beautiful, but not all of it is that soft. So I didn't want it to be like right on his skin. So that's why the top is pieced and there's no embroidery in the top. He chose all the colors for the quilt. I chose everything for the books. It's been completely amazing to collaborate with him on this. We've done projects together before, but nothing like this. I've designed bags for him and like little bespoke things for his travel stuff, but we've never collaborated on something this big. And the fact that this harkens back to the Project of Doom, which is the quilt that I'm best known for, it just makes it a little bit extra special. It's been wonderful to work on. You guys probably won't see it for a few weeks because I'm planning to take this down and load it on my frame and start quilting. I'm going to custom quilt this. My plan right now, and this could change, but my plan right now is to ruler quilt around all the books, ruler quilt around the Moroccan screen. So, go in straight lines around the screen, do like a wood grain inside of the black fabric. And then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll probably do like a little meander or something in the background. And then wherever there needs to be a little custom quilting, like the kitty cat, which is our kitty Iliad, I will probably do like, fur and things like that. So my plan is to custom quilt the heck out of this. And I expect that to take a while because while I am a pretty fast quilter, I can't stand on my feet for that long because of the aforementioned foot surgeries. I've had 3 at this point, and I can do about an hour and a half, 2 hours tops, and then I have to have a really long break. So it's going to take me a while. It could take a couple of weeks. It could take longer. I'm not going to rush because, as I said last week, I already have so many hours in this quilt. I don't want to hurry and mess up the next step. The back of the quilt is going to be the same as the background of the quilt, which is the rest of the fig. I bought miles of this because I originally planned to make 2 quilts. So instead of making 2 quilts out of this, this will go on the back. So the only thing I really have left after quilting will be to design a label, because obviously this bad boy needs a label, and to bind it, which, if I have enough left, will also be the fig, because he wants the binding to disappear. He wants it to, you know, just look like the edges of the quilt. So I'm cool with that. I'm planning to do it exactly like that. Working on this has been quite transformative to me because I'm going to choke up a little bit talking about this, but for anyone who's been around a really long time, you may know that I spent 20 years of my life volunteering a lot for a local nonprofit, and it did not end well. It meant the world to me, and it did not end well. And I was kind of lost after that for a long time. I floated for a long time. We had a lot of changes going on in our lives that took up a lot of my time. And when that was over, I had to kind of go back and figure out who I was without my volunteerism. And I have taken a step back from volunteering, you know, just sort of indefinitely, because I gave so much of myself for so long. I wasn't really sure who I was when that ended. So I have been figuring that out. I've spent a lot of time, the last year especially, figuring out, what do I want to say yes to? What do I want to say no to? What is good for my mental health? What is good for my family? What makes me happy? What do I want to do with the gifts that I have, with the time that I have, with my space, with my creativity? For the time being, that answer is making things for the people I care about and focusing on sharing on YouTube and updating my websites, taking care of my family. And that's kind of it. I've really reeled in a lot of what I was giving to like the rest of the world, because I was left with very little when that part of my life ended. And again, I'm trying not to choke up. So it's been different, and my life has changed, and I'm actually in a place where I feel really good about where I am. This makes me happy. The fact that I haven't lost it, you know, I don't know if that's a thing you've ever experienced before, but for a while I thought my creativity was just kind of starting to turn off, and it scared me a little bit. But I feel like I am still me. I'm still able to do what I like to do. I'm still able to share with you guys, and I am just sort of on a personal journey to be as honest with myself as possible. And in turn, I plan to be as honest with you guys as possible. So I hope you didn't mind me rambling here at the end of this video, but this quilt has been such a journey for me. It's still a journey. I'm not done yet, but just having the quilt top done is such a huge step towards finishing this massive project that I've spent so much time and energy on. It keeps happening. It's a milestone getting this done, and I want to acknowledge that, and I want to celebrate that, because hot damn, this quilt was a lot of work. It has been a lot of work. It is going to keep being a lot of work, but it has been so satisfying. You guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I will put some links in the description about where these patterns come from, where some of the embroidery comes from. I would love to hear what you think. If you have any questions about anything that you see or that I've talked about during this whole process, let me know. I'm happy to share. You guys have a genuinely wonderful week. Have a crafty week. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye. you.